Welcome to the video 17th video in the Marine Invertebrate Biology series, and the second in Arthropods, phylum Arthropods. Okay, within the subphylum Arthropods, we have discussed all of these. Well, this is a bit of a review to start. Chelicerata, no antenna, rudimentary gills, sea spiders, horseshoe crabs, spiders. So then we move on to the subphylum Hexapoda, which are the insects, single pair of antennae, everywhere land and freshwater, rare in the oceans. For the marinies, if you're one of the terrestrial students, then you'll be learning a lot more about insects. For the marinies, this is a marine invertebrate biology course, and we are not going to spend much time on insects. They are rare in the oceans. Lots and lots of insects in freshwater, though, and you will be covering those in freshwater biology. Crustacea is what we're going to spend most of our time on. Two pairs of antennae. They generally will have gills for gas exchange, found in all marine and most freshwater environments. And then again, the Myriapoda. We will not spend much time on myriapods, centipedes, and millipedes. Starting to focus on the subphylum Crustacea. They're a very diverse group, 67,000 species known, probably many more. Most of them are marine. There are freshwater species, and I'm sure you've seen those in diving in the lakes and the like, things like Kora, freshwater crayfish. They've got two pairs of antennas, as we said before, and then they have a basic body plan, which we will discuss, and we'll see how it's modified in many ways for the different classes and orders of crustaceans that I would like for you to be familiar with. The subphylum Crustacea has 5 different classes. You're only responsible for 2 of them. Malacostricans, which are ones that you're probably most familiar with, things like crayfish, crabs, and maxillipoda. So these are things like barnacles and copepods. You'll be very familiar with barnacles, but really as only a sheet of these little white, probably white little bumps on the rocks in the intertidal zone. We're going to start looking at what their biology and body structure looks like. Start with the body plan of the malacostricans, the ones that you're most familiar with. Crayfish, well, you can tell that this is a shrimp. This is what often would be called a prawn at the store. And you'll need to know some of this terminology, the Euphausids, pleopods, pereopods, etc. It's a fairly busy diagram, but we're going to see these structures modified in many different ways, depending on what type of organism that we're looking at, what type of crustacean that we're looking at. So let's start with the abdomen. Okay, oops, A, B. Okay, the abdomen, which comes along here, and it's covered in these little plates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plates. That is going to vary depending on what species or what class and order you're looking at. But at the back of the malacostricans, usually there is a fan, which is made up of 2 types of appendages. The telson, which is like a spiky bit, like so, in the middle, and then a pair of Euphausids, which are the more fan bits. Okay, so the spiky bit in the middle, okay, that is the telson, and then the Euphausids are the fan. Okay, telson and Euphausids. Pleopods are the abdominal segments, or sorry, not segments, the abdominal appendages, Pleopods. The pereopods, peri, generally meaning nearby, close to, okay, and we see foot in all of these. They're all appendages. These are the walking legs, and they are on the cephalothorax. Sometimes they have little pinchers, which are used for manipulating things. They're generally called walking legs. Now, the maxillipeds maxillipeds are the 3 pairs of appendages that are at the front of the cephalothorax, and their job is to manipulate food. Sometimes they gather food, sometimes they are for just holding it near the mouth, allowing the crustacean to eat that food. But they have 3 pairs of maxillipeds, which are for eating. All right, so they will have an antenna or a pair of antennas and a pair of antennules. So 2 pairs of antennas. One of them is called the antennules. All right, so the inner ones are often called the antennules, and the antenna will be the larger outer ones. Okay, the rostrum is not in um, every crustacean and every malacostracan anyway. It's not in everyone, but often there's this little bit that's in the front that kind of points out at the front of what's called the carapace. The carapace is the covering for the cephalothorax. So there's one body plate that covers the entire cephalothorax, and that generally has a rostrum that sticks off, and it's usually kind of a defensive spike at the front of the carapace. And they all have compound eyes. Okay, you'll be very familiar with an eye, like pictures of eyes on bees and the like from the insects. Same type of compound eye in crustaceans. Let's start with the Hopleucarida. All right, these are mantis shrimps, and I will put the links to these incredible videos. There are punchers, grabbers, and spikers, and they have these massive claw-like front pereopods that are used for capturing prey. They can do things like make a bubble collapse that will generate a higher temperature than the surface of the sun for a microsecond. They can do things like spearing or punching punching so hard that they can break aquarium glass. Just amazing things. And I would recommend that you watch those videos. They're fast-moving ambush predators. Here's a picture of a mantis shrimp. Really beautiful, incredible amount of vision. They can see way better than us, a massively higher range of color spectra that they can see. This is one of their antennae here, and this is another antenna, the antennule. All right, so these are used for display. But if you look at the body plan, you'll see the abdomen, the cephalothorax, the telson and uropods at the back, walking legs, the pereopods, the maxillipeds for manipulating food. Similar body plan to all the malacostracans. As I said, you can see the basic body plan of a malacostracan here with the carapace, telson uropod, abdomen, and you can see the pleopods down here, and it has the greatly enlarged thoracic appendages, the pereopods, for catching prey. Let's move on to the Eucarida. These are very important. These second only to copepods for moving phytoplankton, the primary producer of plankton in the ocean that these shrimp, these Euphausid shrimp or these krill, they can filter out those things, and then they're big enough to be eaten by fish. There are times in the Bay of Plenty, for example, if you go out, you'll see these giant workups of kahawai or trevally, and they are essentially generally feeding on krill, which are feeding on phytoplankton blooms. So they're planktonic filter feeders, and the interesting thing is not not just the maxillipeds, but all of the pereopods are modified to filter out the plankton from the water as they swim along. Massive blooms in the Antarctic, which are the main diet of a lot of the baleen whales. And again, there are some videos that I will put links to, but you can see these feather-like appendages of the pereopods filtering out all this little particulate matter that's in the water column. And so when they can use these as strainers and eat some very, very small stuff. They're grazers, but then allow the bigger stuff to eat the krill, which allows that energy transfer up the food chain. So very, very important. Finally, to end this video, we'll introduce the decapods. We'll go into a lot more detail about them in the next video, but just to introduce them, order Decapoda, crabs, prawns, shrimps, crays, amphipods, isopods, etc. These are your classic crustaceans that you're going to be more familiar with, and they're the most important commercially. We make a lot of money off of catching these because we like to eat them, but maybe not ecologically the most important. Maybe depends on what environment you're in, or what habitat you're in. They have 3 pairs of maxillipeds, 5 pairs of pereopods, and they have something called often have something called a chelate or hinged claw. So this is something that you'll need to know. A chelate is essentially like a claw. A chelate is a claw. And if that is the noun, the adjective is chelate. So the appendage could be chelate, which would mean that it would have a claw. If it's non-chelate, it doesn't have a claw. Okay, that'll be it for this video, and we'll talk about decapods in more detail in the next video.